You ever wonder what pushes a crowd from just being frustrated to, a full-blown riot? You're probably picturing big things, right? Politics, justice, some huge cause. But what if I told you some of the most intense riots in history were actually sparked by cheese or chocolate spread and even cheap beer? Yep. Today we are diving deep into the bizarre world of what we're calling petty provision riots, where the trigger seems so small, but the anger behind it is anything but.
So I want you to seriously think about that for a second. What's the price tag for pure, unadulterated chaos? To turn a regular crowd into a mob, what's it going to cost? $1,000? $1 million?
10 cents. That's it. That's the actual price that once tipped an entire city into chaos. I know, you're probably thinking, no way, how is that even possible? Okay, let's dive into this. So picture this. It's 1974. The Cleveland Indians are desperate to get more fans into the stadium. So they cook up this promotion, 10-cent beer night. For just a dime, you get a cup of beer. And the best part? No limit. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. By the second inning, a fan had already hopped the fence to go hang out with the outfielders. And from there, it just got wilder. You had streakers, people setting off firecrackers, and a whole bunch of folks deciding the game looked way more fun on the field than from the stands.
And then the ninth inning hits, and the whole thing just completely falls apart. The crowd, now armed with more than just cheap beer, we're talking ripped-out stadium seats. They stormed the field and start attacking the players. The umpires had no choice. They had to call it a forfeit. The home team lost the game because of their own promotion, all for the low price of 10 cents a cup.
And that whole fiasco is a perfect example of what we're talking about today, a petty provision riot. It's this wild phenomenon where the fuse is something totally ordinary, an everyday item, but the explosion? That reveals something way deeper, way more volatile that's been simmering just under the surface.
And believe it or not, this is nothing new. Let's wind the clock way back. We're going to Nottingham, England in 1766 for a massive conflict that was, you guessed it, all about cheese.
So it all kicked off at the annual Goose Fair. The locals were absolutely furious because the price of cheese had suddenly skyrocketed. So what do? They take matters into their own hands. They start seizing these huge wheels of cheese and just rolling them down the streets. Which, okay, sounds kind of funny. I mean, the mayor himself got knocked clean over by a runaway wheel of cheese. But the laughter definitely stopped when the military was called in and they actually opened fire on the crowd.
So the crucial point is this absolute disconnect between cause and effect. On one side, you have expensive cheese. On the other, a man is killed, people are injured, and the army is in the streets. This wasn't just about the price of food. It was this huge, violent backlash against what people saw as greedy merchants in the time of real hardship. The cheese was just the breaking point.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's all ancient history. But nope. Let's move to a much more recent case that shows this impulse is alive and well. We're going to France, just a few years ago in 2018. And the reason for the chaos? The beloved chocolate hazelnut spread, Nutella. So a supermarket chain called Intermarché announces this insane 70% discount on jars of Nutella. The price plummets from around €4.50 down to just €140. And when people saw that deal, they completely lost their minds.
What happened next was just pure chaos. This quote from an employee really paints the picture. People weren't just grabbing jars. They were fighting over them, shoving, screaming, literally pulling hair. It was a brawl, all for a discount on a jar of chocolate spread.
And this wasn't just one store. These scenes of riot erupted in supermarkets all over France. The police had to be called in over and over again to handle shoppers who were literally fighting in the aisles. Of course, the story went viral, and a simple grocery promotion turned into this huge national conversation about consumer culture and desperation. Okay, so let's recap. We've got cheap beer, expensive cheese, and discounted Nutella. 3 completely different items, different centuries, different countries, but they all led to the exact same chaotic result. So, what's the connection here? What's the secret recipe for a petty provision riot? And this brilliantly illustrates the pattern. It's like a 4-step recipe. Step 1, you need a beloved staple, something woven into the culture, like beer at a baseball game. Step 2, you need a sudden change, a price hike that feels unfair, or a discount that feels like a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Step 3, and this is the most important ingredient, you need simmering tension,
that underlying frustration in society about the economy, or just feeling left behind. And that brings us to step 4, the spark. That one moment where the staple and the change collide, and all that pent-up anger just explodes.
Because that's the thing, right? It's never really just about the snack. The food is a symbol. Back in 1766, that expensive cheese stood for merchants getting rich while regular families were struggling. And then you fast forward to 2018. That jar of Nutella becomes a flashpoint for all these modern anxieties about stagnant wages and the rising cost of living. The snack is the one tangible thing people feel like they can fight for or fight over when the bigger forces controlling their lives feel totally out of reach.
Which really brings us to a final thought. These riots, they seem absurd on the surface, but maybe they're just a kind of pressure valve for society. It really makes you wonder, with all the economic and social tensions floating around today, what's our bad cheese? What's the seemingly trivial little thing that could be the spark for something much, much bigger?